stupid piece of...
Greetings to the Barbarian Horde, and welcome aboard if you're new here. This is Chapter 6 of the Wailing Willow series, and congratulations on keeping up with the adventure. Things are about to get a lot more exciting. If you missed the previous chapter, click up here or follow the link down in the trumpery below to catch up on the adventure. To level up your character, be sure to like and subscribe to this channel and click the bell icon. Otherwise, your lizard might go missing. And now, before any more posts are pwned, Chapter 6. What on earth is that? Wailing Willow, written and read by Brian Carey. Chapter 6. Prepared to dispatch the wee beastie under the Wailing Willow, again, the trio bravely emerged into the tavern's kitchen, again, though this time fully downtrodden. "I'll take that clapping rat carcass with you!" Copper Cudgel shouted after them. Wulfric looked over his shoulder. "You can take it out of my pay." And the three shuffled off through the kitchen, down the stairs of loud squeaking, and returned to the dim, musty cellar. Dane sat at the table and started rolling knuckle bones and mumbling out the totals after each roll. 4, 1, 2. Wulfric started pacing. Angus was the first to break the silence. "Well, what shall we do, lads?" 4, 4. That's odd. This knucklebone always rolls a 4. The dwarf looked to Wulfric. "I'll swim in the river of Drek before I go back up there and be openly mocked by halflings, leaf-eaters, and bards. I'll be honest, when the halflings called us mousebane, that stung a bit. But the fact is this room is too small to house anything bigger than a dire rat. I'm surprised there was even a dire rat in here at all." Wulfric puzzled at this. "I mean, there's some good-sized cracks in the masonry, sure, but those blighters must have squeezed like hinnog to get in here." "Aye," Angus agreed. "I wonder what spurred them through." 4, 4. Dane looked up from his loaded knucklebones. "You know, for once, Wulfric, you're actually right. The Wailing Willow is a huge building, but this room, it isn't even as large as the kitchen. There has to be more cellar to this place." "You mean like a hidden room?" "Exactly. Those dire rats, they must have found a way into this room, but they're living somewhere else." Three adventurers studied the 4 stone walls surrounding them. Wulfric started pushing on different parts of the stone wall, determined it should open. Angus tugged at each book on the bookshelf, hoping for a secret switch. Dane, however, looked at the cabinet. It reached nearly to the ceiling. "This has to be it," Dane thought to himself. He checked it. Locked. Using his sword as a lever, he tried to pry open one of the cabinet doors. The wood held solid. Wielding his short sword, Dane stabbed the door, causing almost, but not entirely, no damage. Though Dane felt his meager attempts should have accomplished more, the cabinet was in fact handcrafted from petrified walnut, and therefore consisted of substantially sterner stuff than imported put-it-together-yourself particle board furniture from a big-box discount store in Lower Transylvania. Fortunately, brute force sometimes is the answer. Dane kicked the cabinet door hard. Nothing. The door rattled briefly, then held absolutely still, mocking him with its resolute intransigence. Fortunately, on occasion, even more brute force is sometimes the answer. "Hey, one of you louts come over here and open this for me." "It'll be my pleasure, laddie." Angus smiled politely. "Now, if you could just step a wee bit to the left, please. A little more. A little more. More." Suddenly his expression switched from friendly to fierce. He charged the cabinet in full berserker mode and swung his battle axe like a baseball bat. The edge of the blade thundered into the cabinet door, which splintered and cracked loudly into halves and pieces. Dane wrenched loose those pieces of the cabinet door to find there were no shelves inside. No contents at all. Only a black void. A draft blew in from the cabinet. Look, this was covering a doorway. Bring me a torch. His discovery filled him with confidence. Dane no longer felt browbeaten. He was no longer the Mousebane. Instead, he was the intrepid Dane, torch resolute in one hand, stalwart sword in the other. He prepared to bravely step through the cabinet and face the black unknown. Don't step on any dire rats while you're in there, Wulfric offhandedly remarked. The younger brother thought about Wulfric's comment. Only for a second. That's all it took. He remembered how the dire rat knocked him over and sliced him open, its grubby little claws sinking right through his chain-link armor, shoulder now throbbing from his last rat encounter. The now slightly less intrepid Dane, torch quivering unsteadily in one hand, sword trembling in the other, prepared to tentatively step through the cabinet into the scary unknown, hoping to all that was holy he wouldn't accidentally step on a dire rat. Dane held the torch aloft. The room smelled of death. It almost took his breath away. "What do you see in there, laddie?" Angus called through the cabinet door opening. "It smells like the sewer end of an orc cave." "I think you better bring in some more light." Wulfric and Angus stepped through with the other torch and saw some things that were disturbing. Stomach rolling, Dane wheezed, "I think I'm going to chunder." He averted his eyes and tried his utmost not to look at the torchlight's egregious revelations. Stomachs tightened. Some things can't be unseen. Before continuing, let's review the circumstances. These people are warriors, and at least 2 of them are barbarians, probably raised by rabid wolves or a pack of angry bane weasels. So they've seen and done vastly more horrific things than any civilized person, and even they think they are about to disgorge their dinner. Clearly anyone listening this far should stop, or at the very least, should skip ahead a few moments. Also, the phrase, skip ahead a few moments, should be construed to mean just go to the next chapter and assume everything else went to plan. The peril is too grievous to comprehend. Now, to the few courageous people who've now bravely decided not to heed these courteous warnings, you should seek immediate counseling. Therapy! As their eyes adjusted to the darker room, Angus and Wulfric were revolted by the bug wall. One long wooden wall was covered with many hundreds and seemingly thousands of spiders. There were crickets, millipedes, earwigs, and even a few snakes. Each spider, bug, or creature was pinned to the wall with a tiny shard of glass or sliver of bone and left to rot in place. "Do not chunder," Angus pleaded. "Because if I see someone else chunder, and it just makes me want to chunder, and it just keeps getting worse and worse." "Nope, I'm closing my eyes." There were more than a few dire rat skeletons. Not that anyone would notice after seeing an entire wall of impaled spiders and creepians. All the dire rat skeletons were stripped clean, hundreds of bones scattered all over the ground. The only conclusion was that someone had been surviving on, nay eating, the dire rats. That someone was in the far corner, silently watching them from the still darkness. Once the gaze was felt, no one wanted to return eye contact. Silent prayers were uttered during moments of restrained breath. Angus finally peeked into the darkness of the far corner. The hollowed eyes boring into his soul were that of a dead man. Relief and revulsion were simultaneous. There was no method to discern exactly how long the deceased man had been there. The reason for this was because the deceased man, if indeed it was a man, looked almost mummified. The reason for this was because the deceased man was wrapped in many layers of fine silken string and completely desiccated. The reason for this was because something obviously treated the deceased man akin to a hot meal, though this is not something the adventurers desired to contemplate. "In Uruk's name," Angus whispered, "it looks like all the moisture's been sucked out of him. He looks like the dried husk of a man." "What's he wrapped in?" Dane wondered aloud. Wulfric squinted into the darkness. "Is it spider silk?" "No, there's too much of it. That would take thousands of spiders. It's more like someone wound him in string? What kind of sick horrors happened here?" Dane inquired, staring at the cobwebs throughout the room. Wulfric forced himself to glance around. There's nothing living in here anymore. He looked at the bug wall and had to fight off the urge to chunder as well. There has to be more to this cellar. Let's get out of. Just as he was about to exit the chamber, Wulfric noticed a lever next to the cabinet opening where they had all entered. A secret lever in the dark immediately seized his curiosity. Holding up his torch, he further noticed that the spot actually held 2 levers, though one of them had broken off. The broken lever was meant to open the cabinet entryway, which Angus ever so politely destroyed. Perhaps the accidental breaking of this lever had sealed the fate of the desiccated man, trapping him in the room until he'd gone mad from hunger and things that creep and sting in the darkness. But the other lever. What does the other lever do? Wulfric wondered. Hey, check this out, Wulfric announced and reached for the lever. No! No, Roddy, don't pull the lever! No! Dane and Angus shouted. Wulfric heard their warnings, halted his intention to pull the lever, and everything was fine. This is exactly what did not happen. Instead, at hearing this, Wulfric merely performed the same logical and rational action that anyone else would do. He pulled the lever. What happens when he pulls the lever? What happens when he pulls the lever? Pulling unknown levers in dungeons can be hazardous to one's health. The only reasonable way to find out what happens next would be sharing this video series with a friend and clicking the like button, the subscribe button, and also the bell icon. Chapter 7 is right around the corner. Just click over here for Chapter 7, where surprising secrets will be revealed. And this next chapter is good. I mean, just watch it and see. You're going to love it. Chapter 7 is right over here.